Have you ever spent hours revising only to forget it the next day? You're not alone, and it's not your fault. Most students revise in ways that feel productive, but they don't actually train their brain to remember things. Today, I'm going to show you 10 powerful active recall techniques that will help you learn faster, remember longer, and to study smarter and not just harder. Whether you're in school, university, or in the workplace, trying to upskill yourself, these techniques will transform the way that you learn. So let's get into it. Many of us are told you need to revise, but they don't tell you why we need to revise and they don't tell you how to revise. So many students just go on their day trying to spend half of the year trying to figure out the best way that they revise. And this in psychology is called metacognition. Metacognition is learning the way um, of how our brain learns, or the way it processes information, or how we think in a certain way. And learning how we learn and the psychology of learning. And this is equally important when you approach your content, your exam strategy, and your revision strategies. And many students fall into a trap of just highlighting the information and just highlighting their notes and just reading a textbook. Just passively reading, it doesn't do anything with the information. You're not transferring it from a bulk of letters or words into something tangible, into something physical that you can actually go back to. You need to actively engage in your learning. That means you need to do something with the content and the information. So let's get into it of the 10 strategies that you can turn from passive to active learning. The first is flashcards. These can be digital or physical. I personally like to go to Poundland or Ryman's and get myself a bulk of 100 flashcards and use it physically when I'm on the bus or when I'm like just at home and I'm having my revision hour. I have those physical flashcards that I can use highlighters or colors to make it look pretty if I want to, or I can just get some pieces of paper, cut them in half, and then create some A5 flashcards too. So flashcards are a classic active recall tool, and it's for a good reason. You put the question on one side and the answer on the other side. This forces your brain to recall the answer before flipping it. And tools like Quizlet and Brainscape are really useful because you get to rate your confidence levels, and also it identifies the knowledge gaps for you. So it puts that flashcard on again so that you can redo the question. This is why it works, is because every time you force your brain to retrieve information, you strengthen its memory pathway. That's why information goes from your short term into your long term memory. The second is a similar one, which is the question method. Most students write notes as long paragraphs, but the brain remembers questions better than statements. Instead of writing things like, matter is anything that has mass that occupies space, actually writing in your notes and maybe highlighting the question, what is matter? And then writing one or two bullet points or keywords, it allows you to shift your notes into a built-in quiz. This is also a form of actively recalling the information and knowing the exact wording that you need in order for your exam too. So I would recommend using examiners' reports, mark schemes to get the exact wording of certain questions. Maybe there is a 6 marker or a 2 marker that comes every single year. If you get the exact wording, you've already got those marks in the bag because you have seen the question repeatedly and you are exposing yourself in that revision session as well. The third is practice tests and quizzes. I can't emphasize this enough. You shouldn't be exposed to your exam in your mocks or in your actual exam hall. You should have done all the past papers from like 2017 onwards. Like, do all the past papers because you are going to be sitting that exam. The more exposure you have to it, and the more times you do it within timed conditions, the better you'll become with exam strategy as well. If you want exam confidence, you need exam style practice, especially for subjects like maths. The more you do, the better you become, and you will notice your mistakes when you mark it, when you self-mark it as well. So, using online tests, timed sessions, there are things, I'm just going to speak on maths because I'm a maths teacher. Things like, oh, it's gone out of my head. Corbett Maths has a load of worksheets and exam booklets based on topics as well. But Maths Genie, I think it's called something else nowadays, but they have exam questions per grade per topic. And it allows you to break down topics and just focus on certain topics that you find difficult and be exposed to an exam style Edexcel AQA paper, and doing different exam boards as well will really help you out, not just sticking to just Edexcel or just AQA. Having exposure to the worded problems that come up in each can really help you out. So number 2 is what I just told you, practice tests, which is one of the most strongest forms of active recall because they mimic the exact real exam environment. Your brain learns what to recall and how fast to recall it. And the fourth strategy is something called the blurting method. This one is simple but really brutally effective. Step 1, read the topic. Step 2, close the book. And step 3, on a blank piece of paper, write down everything you remember. This is especially useful for things like English as well, when you are looking at themes or characters or different different poems that you are looking at. I will highly recommend the blurting technique when you are revising essay-based subjects, or if you're an A-level student and you have your social sciences like sociology and psychology. In sociology, what is functionalism, what's Marxism, what's feminism, getting 3 different pieces of paper and getting one colored pen and writing everything you know down. And this is something that I used before, is then going over it with a different colored pen of all the knowledge gaps and all the points that you missed out, because that shows you which points you don't remember and which points you do remember. So blurting is a very effective method. Don't peek, don't use your notes, just use your brain. And it will take time for you to build confidence with this, because initially you might not know anything and you might only have 2 or 3 points, but the more you do it, the better you become at it. Then you have to compare what you wrote with the original content. That gives you instant feedback, instant clarity on what you actually know and what you don't know as well. The fifth is the Feynman technique. I've already spoke about this, but we have Mr. Teddy Bear right here. I really need to name him. I've had him for like a good few years now. Great buddy. But the Feynman technique is named after the Nobel Prize winning physicist Richard Feynman. This technique forces deeper understanding, and here's how it works. You choose one topic, you explain it in the simplest way possible, like you're teaching a child or a teddy bear, and then you identify the gaps, you relearn, and then you simplify again. If you can't explain it simply, like me to Mr. Teddy Bear, you don't understand it deeply. When you are teaching, you are learning twice. So learning it in simple layman terms, or or getting complex concepts and making it simpler, will really help you out in the exam. Number 6, closed book recall sessions. After studying a topic, close your book and try to recall the key points, the definitions, the diagrams, and the summaries, especially for subjects like chemistry and physics, when you have your organic chemistry or when you have physics diagrams that you need to draw. Using this is a very effective technique, or even when you have different parts of an experiment and you need to draw out the apparatus and stuff like that. It's a very useful tool that you can just recall from your memory and visually represent it onto paper. You can speak it out loud, write it down, or record yourself. There are different ways of doing this. I know I had a friend when I was back in school. He used to make raps and songs out of her revision tools because she loved to sing and she loved music. So she turned her content into lyrics, which was really, really cool. But then she used to listen to it back while she was commuting on the train and on the bus because that's the best way that she learned. She was an auditory learner. Some people made videos about the things that they learnt, or they spoke orally about it, and that enabled them to actively engage with their content in a physical or a kinesthetic way, and that allowed them to remember what they learnt more effectively. This strengthens long-term memory far more than just rereading it. And strategy number 7 is mind mapping from memory. Mind maps help you to visualize information instead of memorizing long lists. But I will give a caveat to this because a lot of people spend too much time just coloring in and just making it look pretty instead of actually thinking, do I know the content? You need to create the mind map from memory, not while looking at your notes. That's when it's the most effective. If you make it whilst looking at your notes, you won't actually understand what you do know and what you don't know. So, when you make a mind map from memory, this forces your brain to reconstruct the information, which is a powerful form of active recall. Number 8 is verbal recall or teaching someone. Teaching is one of the most underrated study tools, so explaining the topic to a friend, a sibling, a parent, or even yourself in the mirror, or even when I'm talking to the camera right now, I'm also learning all of these strategies that I'm speaking to you, and it's embedding into my long-term memory because I am teaching it. When you teach, your brain organizes information more clearly and you remember it for longer. So, when you're doing group study, take it in turns, even enhancing your public speaking skills or even creating a presentation where you have to teach each other a topic. It will show you what your friends understand as well, what you don't understand. And when they do Q&As or when they question you about something that they didn't understand, you then being able to explain that concept to them will help you understand that topic in greater depth as well. Number 9 is the Cornell Note Summary Recall. I use this a lot in my A levels, and this was actually based on Cornell University and a lot of their research. So the Cornell method is something I want you to go away and take a look at because it's a bit long to explain in like a 10-minute video. But the Cornell method is a structured way to take notes and revise using active recall. So here's how it works. So on the right-hand side of your paper, you make the main notes, but on the left-hand side, you write questions or cues. We had to do this method whilst we were learning in our lessons because our school made us use the Cornell note-taking method. And then we had a summary at the bottom. We had the title at the top, and then we had the main key points, and it could only be 1 page long. And this was useful, but at the same time, I wish I just used this for revision and not for my actual lesson time, because I think during your actual lesson time, getting majority of the content down is important. A lot of people use this method when they're at university as well. So it's a good habit to get into. It basically turns your notes into a built-in revision system. During your revision, what happens now is that you need to hide your main notes, your left-hand side, and you have your right-hand side of your questions or a keyword that then you have to record the content using only the cue in that column. So when you then look at your main notes, you can see which are your gaps and which points you missed out from that cue. So that is also a type of questioning strategy used within note taking. And finally, number 10, active recall apps. I've already told you about Quizlet and Brainscape. There are other apps like Anki, for example. If you prefer using digital tools, there are apps specifically designed for spaced repetition because you actually need to go over content around 4 to 7 times for it to actually stick into your long-term memory. And you forget a lot of the information after 24 hours. Then recalling it again after 3 days and then a week and then a couple of months will then enable you to retain the information for a longer period of time. These apps specifically personalize your learning and show you what to revise and when to revise it. And it will give you notifications on certain days that you need to go back to certain topics. And it will color code it as well so that you know which topics you are weaker in and which topics you are stronger in. So, those were my 10 strategies, but how does active recall actually work? Let's break it down, the science behind why active recall is so powerful. The first is that it strengthens neural connections. Every time you retrieve information, you reinforce a neural pathway. It's like strengthening a muscle. You are creating new neural pathways in your brain, and then you are strengthening that neural pathway every time you repeat it. The second is that you fight the forgetting curve. There is a curve that I told you about that you forget information as time goes on. Your brain naturally forgets over time. And active recall resets the forgetting curve to help you retain the knowledge for longer. The third is it creates stronger memories. The effort of pulling information out of your brain creates deeper and more durable memories. And the fourth is it improves comprehension. You're not just memorizing, you're reconstructing meaning, and this leads to real understanding. And finally is that it highlights knowledge gaps. If you can't recall something, it's a signal. It shows you exactly where to focus next. Active recall is one of the most powerful learning techniques on the planet, and it works for every single person. There are decades and centuries of research to back up active recall. From flashcards to blurting, from mind maps to teaching others, these strategies help you to learn smarter, remember longer, and study with confidence. And if you want more videos on learning science, which is cognitive psychology and metacognition and educational psychology, make sure you subscribe and let me know which technique you want me to dive deeper into. I hope this video helped. And if you are my student, you should be revising right now. Stop watching me and go get your ass to revise because I ain't writing your exam. I got my GCSEs. That's my favorite line to use in the classroom. It's such a cliche line, but I love it. So I got my GCSEs. You need to get yours. So get your ass to revise because I don't believe in motivation. I believe in discipline. So build those habits early. And if you are in year 7, 8, or 9, or even 10, learn the way that you study best. Try the different techniques. Try the different active recall techniques. Try the different apps, use the digital tools. If that doesn't work, go to the physical flashcards and mind maps and actually handwriting your notes and see which one works and which one doesn't. And yeah, until next time, bye.